Well, Mr. President, yesterday, for the second time in less than a week, Republicans were given the opportunity to fund TSA and to also fund FEMA, to stand up for our Coast Guard and make sure core DHS operations are funded while negotiations on ICE and Border Patrol continue. And for the second time in less than a week, Republicans said no. Well, we're giving them another opportunity this morning, later this morning, another opportunity to end their blockade at TSA. We're giving Republicans the opportunity to end their blockade of FEMA. We're giving Republicans the opportunity to end their blockade at CISA and to end their blockade at Coast Guard and much else. The bottom line is very simple. It's easy. You don't have to follow politics very closely to see it. Democrats are ready to fund TSA. Republicans are blocking it. Democrats are ready to fund CISA. Republicans are blocking it. Democrats are ready to fund FEMA and Coast Guard and most of DHS operations. We will give Republicans a chance to say yes. We all know that we do not have agreement on how to deal with ICE. We know, very simply, that Democrats just want ICE to behave like any police department in America and use warrants and not wear masks. But we don't have to tie that disagreement up and use people at the airports and American citizens as hostages and say, we're not going to fund FEMA, we're not going to fund ICE, we're not going to fund TSA unless you give in to our unreasonable and unpopular demands on reforming ICE. So we're going to offer these bills one at a time and see where our Republican colleagues go. We know the American people are on our side. We know that the only thing Republicans need to do is stay out of the way, and these programs will be funded today, and problems at the airports will go away.
Democrat leader yield?
I will.
So I assume the Democrat leader is aware of the fact that we have tried repeatedly to fund everything temporarily to allow the negotiations over the ICE budget to continue.
I am well aware, but that hasn't worked. What can work
and the reason
is
that
stop.
hasn't,
No,
the reason that
I am
hasn't
not
worked
yielding back.
is because the Democrats have blocked it.
Yeah, the bottom line is Democrats are ready today. America, watch. We will have members on the floor saying, let's fund TSA with no other preconditions. What will Republicans do? They're going to see Republicans get up and block it. It's that simple. Now, my friend, sometimes, much of the time, my friend, the Republican leader, says, well, you'll only do it if you go along with what we want on ICE and what we want on Border Patrol. Highly unpopular and wrong. So who's standing in the way? America, look at it. We're not putting any preconditions on funding TSA. The Republicans are. And why?
Mr. President,
because
the Democrat leader would yield for a question.
No, in a minute. Why? Because Republicans are in obeisance to Donald Trump's insistence on having these marauding forces of ICE go through our cities. We saw what they did in Minneapolis. We saw what they did in Los Angeles. We saw what they did in other places. Americans don't like it. Trump's numbers have suffered. And so it's simple. Don't attach preconditions. Fund TSA. Fund CISA. You'll have that opportunity in a few hours. And if you get up and block it and say, we'll only do it unless, Americans will know who's to blame. I yield.
Well, I would just say again to the Democrat leader that the Democrats have had multiple opportunities, and we'll have another one today, to provide funding for all of the agencies that he just mentioned to allow us to consider, under the continuing resolution, to allow us to consider how we're going to resolve the DHS issues that the Democrat leader has raised, which are being negotiated, I might add, at the moment between Democrats and Republicans in the White House. So there will be an attempt. The Democrats will have an opportunity to block, as they have now repeatedly, A continuing resolution would fund all the agencies to which you just alluded and allow us more time to negotiate. So those agencies could be funded if the
Would my
Democrats
colleague
block
yield
it.
for a question? Will he support, without any Republican blocking it, a straight motion to just deal with TSA and get it funded while we're trying to work out these negotiations? Will he support that? No ands, ifs, or buts, no preconditions, no keep negotiating on ICE, but just get it done. Will he support that?
I would support a resolution which will be offered to fund not just TSA, but Coast Guard, cybersecurity, CISA, FEMA, other agencies and departments of our government that are essential not only to national security and homeland security, but to making sure that people can move through our airports in this country, that the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, has the ability to respond to disasters. Those are things, Mr. President, to my friend, the Democrat leader, could all be funded today, and then we can continue this discussion that he wants to have, which again, there has been offers made repeatedly, the most recent of which was about 13 days ago, I think, from the White House, and the Democrats have yet to respond to it.
Reclaiming my time, I rest my case. What the leader is saying is he will only fund TSA if we will continue to fund for a short time, for a long time, ICE and Border Patrol, which he knows is gridlocked, which he knows we don't agree with. And so it's clear. He's made it clear. Just fund TSA. That's it. He has a lot of rigmarole attached, funding TSA, but do this, but do that, but do this. Can't win the argument, leader. It's simple. We're being clear. We're being concise. So the question is very simple. I say to my Republican friends, support the legislation that's coming on the floor today, and if you do, TSA is funded like that. Every Democrat is for it. My guess is half to three-quarters of the Republicans are wishing they'd be for it, but their leadership is insisting on attaching preconditions on ICE negotiations and Border Patrol negotiations. So all I say to my Republican colleagues, stop the speeches that you care about TSA. Don't talk the talk. Walk the walk. Let the legislation that we are proposing go forward without blocking it, and TSA will be back to work. Our lines at the airports will go. And then we will have a legislation on CISA. Don't talk to us about the need for safety and then block legislation that allows CISA to go through. That's hypocrisy. Just let it go through. And I know that our Republican leadership knows that we have the high ground here, knows that the people are on our side. And why do Republicans do this? Why won't they budge to give an inch on ICE, which is highly unpopular, and even the president has said hasn't done things right? That's the mystery, but it's probably because some in the right wing insist. And we know that the hard right runs this party, and that's why they're doing so poorly with the American people right now. That's why we Democrats are on the ascent, because we're with the American people. The American people say fund ICE, fund TSA now. And you can debate ICE. There's been a debate on ICE. We believe we're right. We believe something as simple as warrants should be used by ICE when you bust into someone's house. We believe simply that ICE agents should not be masked when every police department and sheriff's department is identified. And the American people are with us. But we don't even have to debate that today, because what Republicans are doing is insisting that we don't change a thing about ICE before we move forward on TSA. That's wrong. That's using the American people as hostages, and we're not going to do it. And I remind my Republican colleagues, we're going to be back here again and again, winning this debate and eventually winning the American people, which will say to you folks on the Republican side, you better stop this blockade of TSA, of CISA, of FEMA, and of the Coast Guard. You better stop using them as hostages till you get your way on ICE and on CPB, where you're out of touch with the American people. I yield the floor. Oh, no, I don't yield the floor. I have a few other subjects I might like to touch on. There's so much to talk about. Donald Trump and the Republicans are screwing up America in so many ways. So let's talk about Iran for a minute. Donald Trump, as the war on Iran continues, Donald Trump does what he usually does. He lies. He's lying to the American people. According to public reporting, preliminary intelligence reports suggest tragically that American operations may have been involved, unfortunately, in this horrible missile strike on the all-girls elementary school in Iran on the first day of the war. And when Donald Trump was asked about those reports, what did he say? He said, "Well, I don't know about that." That's ridiculous, and it's an obvious lie. Donald Trump's the commander-in-chief, and he expects us to believe that he has no clue about intelligence regarding a horrific attack on a school several days after it occurred. The vast majority of Americans obviously won't believe Donald Trump. They know he's an inveterate liar. He lies daily. They will know when he says he didn't know about this report. Of course he did. But there might be a handful of Americans who still might believe the guy, that don't understand that he's an inveterate liar. And so think about that. He is saying he had zero clue about a basic intelligence report regarding this strike. If he didn't know about it 2 or 3 days later when all of America did, and he's not lying, which I believe he is, then what chaos? What's going on in this administration? The commander-in-chief on something that affects policy while we're at war says he doesn't know about it? That talks about the chaos and confusion that have taken over this administration. The idea that something is all jumbled up in the White House, that there's no information flow to the president on something so important. So either Donald Trump is lying when he says he knows nothing about the school bombing intelligence findings — he gets these reports every day — or he's dangerously uninformed, which says his staff is really screwed up. Equally unacceptable is Donald Trump's apparent miscalculation when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. In the early days of this war, Donald Trump bragged that victory would come easily. We're going to win shortly, no time, no problem. But now, after the United States has damaged so much of Iran's infrastructure, the new radical supreme leader is focusing on the one point of leverage Iran has always had over the world economy, the Strait of Hormuz. A few moments ago, in his first public comments as Supreme Leader, Khamenei, who's even worse than his predecessor, his father, said Iran will continue to block the Strait of Hormuz. Freeing it could potentially, America, require boots on the ground. How did Donald Trump not see this coming? How did his planners not see this coming? This is the one bit of leverage Iran has. Of course we knew they were going to use it. They've used it in the past. A college student with a basic understanding of geopolitics could tell you that Iran's greatest leverage is this narrow passage through which a huge share of the world's oil must travel. And now, 13 days after we're into the war, I believe it is 13 days, the administration is scrambling to contain the damage and deal with rising oil prices. And Trump, Donald Trump, just by saying, oh, the war's going to end soon, you're not going to fix the shortage of oil or fertilizer or other products in America. As I said for days, after I said for days that he should, Donald Trump finally announced he's tapping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Should have done it sooner. But in any case, even this decision was marred by chaos and confusion. It caught our allies completely off guard, because for days it seemed Trump would hold back. There's such disorganization and chaos when we're in a war. You can't afford chaos in a war. I don't know of any other time America went to war and things were so chaotic. There is not a single strategic decision that Trump has made in this war that was not born from chaos, confusion, misinformation, and lies. And there is nobody up there in the White House around him willing to stand up and tell him when he was wrong. In his first term, Trump had Kelly, Trump had Mattis, people who had courage, who had backbones, who had military backgrounds, and they told him the truth. He eventually fired them for telling the truth, but they told him the truth. Where is the truth teller now? No one's there, and America is paying the price, unfortunately, in lives, and the eight brave troops we lost, in fortune. They said the first 2 days or the first week of the war cost $11 billion. We could fix a lot of health care with that $11 billion. And in strength. This has gone too far, with too much chaos, too little thought, and it's hurting America. I yield the floor.